I've got a lot of respect for surfers, that is not easy.
Hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Chap, and this is the new GoPro Hero 12 Black. And I asked you on Instagram stories how I should test it, and, well, this was your response.
Okay. And now I hand you over to my lovely wife, Sarah, Mrs. Tech Chap, who is better than me at this, so cool.
Look at him go!
So this place is called The Wave in Bristol, which is near where I live, and it's a pretty amazing place to learn and practice your surf. And while I will admit my footage from the Hero 12 isn't quite as impressive as you may see from GoPro's own fancy promo commercials, I've got to say I have so much respect for surfers. This is not easy. Anyway, I can't believe I'm here with the 12th generation GoPro. The Hero 12 Black has just launched, and it's the same price as last year's Hero 11 at about £399 or $399. However, with increasingly stiff competition from Insta360's action cameras and also DJI's just updated Action 4, is the GoPro 12 still worth buying? Well, I must admit, it's not the most exciting upgrade. Same design, same sensor, same 5.3K 60 and 4K 120 options, with a fair few limitations as well depending on what mode you're in. And it's still not great in low light. That's why we all want a bigger sensor. But there are a couple of very welcome updates. We have longer run times, an extra mounting option, HDR video, as well as a new log recording option, GP log. You can now shoot vertical video, so 9:16, and without having to rotate the camera. You can now pair wireless mics, even your AirPods, and it works with voice commands. The latest HyperSmooth 6 analyzes 4 times more data, apparently, so it's better tuned for giving you the right level of stabilization. And there's a few extras like time code syncing, which is handy if you're shooting on multiple GoPros. We also have a new photo interval mode, and they've introduced a new Max Lens Mod 2.0, which is slimmer, it's 2 times more scratch resistant, and gives you an even wider field of view. Although this is an optional extra and will set you back around $100. So nothing exactly groundbreaking. The Hero 12 is more about quality of life upgrades, and also it caters more to professionals. Now you may have noticed I never actually reviewed the Hero 11. My last GoPro video was the 10, this guy. And I think the reason for that possibly, or at least the story I'm telling myself, is that when I reviewed this I complained that it overheated and it shut down far too quickly after like 10 or 15 minutes when it was static, like if you're not going down a mountain on a snowboard or you're cycling. But now I'm back and I have this review sample of the Hero 12, and I think that it's because they've made a big upgrade to the runtime. And it's actually not due to the battery life, but due to improved thermals. So this does not shut down as quickly as the older models. And GoPro say it should last up to 2 times as long as even the Hero 11, which is a pretty big claim. So how much longer does this actually last before it shuts off? Well, I don't have a Hero 11, but I do have a 10, and a little side-by-side comparison back at the office. So here on the left I have the Hero 10, and on the right the Hero 12, and they're both using the Enduro battery and shooting 5.3K 60 at 16:9. And look at that, just under 16 minutes, the Hero 10 is too hot to carry on, and so it stops the recording and turns itself off. Whereas the Hero 12 lasts just shy of 26 minutes, so a good 10 minutes longer. Still not exactly a long runtime, but given these are recording at room temperature and there's no wind or anything, it's not too bad, and it is a significant step up. And also look at that, despite the Hero 12 lasting 10 minutes longer, it actually used 1% less battery than the Hero 10, and again both using the Enduro battery. So it definitely lasts longer, both the runtime due to the thermals and not shutting off, and also the battery life, at least compared to the 10. Now, my second favorite feature is actually underneath, because if I bring up my iPhone now, you can see that I'm recording this with the GoPro Hero 12 mounted on top of my Joby GorillaPod. Joby? The fact that it can simply screw in to any thread like that, and I have a million of them, these sort of tripods and GorillaPods and things like that, just makes it so helpful. It just screws in right there. Very much an underrated upgrade, I think. Now, one of the new features of the Hero 12 is the ability to shoot in HDR. So you've got the standard, you've got the log, which is also new, but HDR is more like photography HDR. It captures multiple different exposures. You can see the difference shooting in HDR, particularly in highlights like the sun, those bright sort of like high exposure areas. You can see there's a little bit more detail. It's controlling those highlights a bit better in HDR. And actually here in my car, if I pan to the right, you can see the light, the sun reflections off that very bright silver car next to me. It is definitely a subtle improvement though, and I don't find myself really shooting in this mode that much, but again, it's nice to have the option. There are some limitations though. If I go to the HDR profile, with the 8x7 full sensor, we are simply limited to 4K 30, which is a bit disappointing. Although switching to 16:9, we can go then up to 4K 60 or 5K 30. So not quite the same options as the standard mode. Although you do still get all 5 different lens options here and hyper smooth with auto boost, which I'd recommend keeping on because then it decides what level of stabilization you need based on how shaky your footage is. You don't really have to think about it. Okay, so let's talk about actually using the GoPro Hero 12. And if you have had a GoPro from the last few years, this will all be very familiar. You've got the power button on the side, and with a long press of that, it'll turn on. And that's me. We've got this little square cover screen in the front, and then the usual main screen at the back. On the top here, we have the record button, and it's telling me off because I haven't got an SD card in there right now. And so if you then pry open this little flap here, you can see we've got the battery. This is the Enduro battery. This Enduro battery was introduced last year on the Hero 11 and lasts just a little bit longer. They sort of changed the battery chemistry compared to the regular GoPro batteries, which have this sort of blue accent, although they are interchangeable, but this one lasts a little bit longer. So that guy pops in there. You can still swap the batteries out, and then you've got the slot for the micro SD card in there, of which I usually shoot with a 128 gig card inside. Close that up, and this is water resistant to 10 meters or 33 feet. Although you can take this deeper, but it will then require the separate protective outer housing. Up front, you can see we have the microphone, and the audio quality, the recording from just the camera is pretty good actually. Now, of course, you can connect wireless mics externally via Bluetooth, including even like your AirPods if you want to, and you can use voice commands through your AirPods to control your GoPro remotely, which is very cool. But obviously the main downside with pretty much all action cameras at the moment, and continues with the Hero 12, is that the low light quality is not fantastic. The sensor's just not big enough, and so it's quite noisy. Come on, bigger sensors. So in terms of design, the only difference really is the fact that it says 12 rather than 11, and also you've got this sort of blue speckly design within the rubbery finish. Still very small and compact, easy to chuck this in your backpack with you wherever you go, and it's just a lovely little action camera. And actually one of the new features, as I say, of the Hero 12 is that you have this vertical framing option. So previously on the Hero 11, to shoot vertical, you'd actually have to physically rotate the camera, which isn't the end of the world, but it does require a bit of messing around with your mounts. Now you can shoot vertical while the actual GoPro itself is still horizontal. You can see these menus don't always respond instantly. This is using the same GP2 chip as the Hero 10, I believe. So actually, if we switch from the 8x7 to widescreen, or 16:9, that then does open up more options here. So you can now shoot at 5.3K 60, 4K 120, or 2.7 240. So there are limitations, even though this is the most advanced GoPro yet. And to illustrate that a bit more clearly, if I go back to the settings here and change the controls away from the easy simple to Pro, which is kind of how I prefer and how we're used to it with GoPros, you can now see the familiar resolution, aspect ratio, frame rate, and framing there. So if I customize this preset, you can see I've got standard, HDR, and log. These are the two new options for the Hero 12. You've got the 4 aspect ratios, the resolutions, the frame rates, the lens. So most of the time I find myself shooting in standard profile with a 8x7 aspect ratio, so that's the full sensor, and that gives me the flexibility to edit it vertically or horizontally afterwards. The downside of that is that you do lose the ability to shoot at 60 FPS at that highest 5.3K resolution, so generally I find myself shooting at 4K, 60 FPS, still get the 10-bit, wide lens currently, which also is a limitation of 8x7, hyper smooth on, and then you've got your sort of pro settings down here, and I haven't really tweaked any of this stuff. It's all pretty good out of the box now. So right now I'm shooting this on the Hero 12 in 8x7 full screen mode, full V mode. So I can then afterwards, whether it's in the Quick app, the GoPro app, or in my own editing software, I can then choose if I want it to be 16:9 horizontal or 9:16 vertical. Now of course this isn't new for the Hero 12, the 11 introduced it, but it is one of my favorite features, and to be able to change the aspect ratio after you shoot it, it definitely makes my life easier. I just shoot everything in this mode, this 8x7 mode, so I'm basically all set regardless of where I'm using it. And we're home. So linear with horizon leveling, linear, and then wide, and then super view, and then hyper view, which it's actually not allowing me to do right now. And I think that's because I'm at the 5.3K resolution. So if I switch that to 4K, let's see if that works. Go back to that. Yes, there you go. So now hyper view is possible at the lower 4K resolution, which is 12mm. It is super, super duper wide. And then if you actually switch this lens out for the Max Mod 2.0, all you do is rotate it, pull it off, and then attach the Max Lens Mod. And then it gives you the different modes, the Max Hyper View, Super View, and the regular wide. Just make sure if you do use the Lens Mod 2 that you then click this little button here and activate it, because then it gives you the different modes. Now if you swipe across the screen or press the power button, you then switch to the different modes, and you can take a 27 megapixel photo, and then you've got the different time-lapse options. So by default it's time warp, but you can also change to star trails, light painting, a whole bunch of different sped up or long exposure options here, which are all fun to play with. And then swipe down for the settings menu, of which you can swipe to the left and you can manage your SD card, and also of course upload your footage to Quick, the app, or GoPro storage, although that does require a subscription, and then this way for more preferences. Again, nothing particularly new here if you have used a GoPro from the last few years. So, should you buy I can't even, that's just too dangerous. I can't skateboard, I'm not going to pretend I can. I can't surf either. I don't know why they send me action cameras to review. I can't do anything actiony. But should you buy the GoPro Hero 12? Well, I think it entirely depends on what GoPro you currently have and if you need a new one, like if your current one's broken. Because to be honest, while there are some very nice upgrades with this guy, I wouldn't chuck my own one in the bin just yet. And actually I think the Hero 11 with its bigger sensor and the 8x7 and all that was actually probably a more significant upgrade. I think maybe if you've got a GoPro 7 or 8, possibly worth upgrading. There are quite a few nice to haves. And the video quality I get from this thing is still fantastic. So I suppose the number one thing on my wish list would be a bigger 1-inch sensor so it does perform better in low light. I'm sure they would if they could, and there were rumors that they were going to with this, but obviously it's going to be a challenge to maintain the thermals and the battery and the runtime, which has been a problem with these in the past. Let me know what you make of the Hero 12 in the comments below, and also if you've got any questions, let me know. Thank you so much for watching and putting up with my terrible surfing and pretty appalling athleticism, and I'll see you next time right here on The Tech Chat.